By doing today. Let's see if we're live. Hey, this is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, host of the African History Network show. I'm a talk show host, researcher, lecturer, writer, and historian. So it is Wednesday, February 5th, 2020. Hope everybody's doing well today. Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. Okay, so and then shout out to everybody on watching us on our YouTube channel as well. Michael Imhotep, Imhotep. Okay, so I didn't get a chance to deal with this topic Sunday night, February 2nd, 2020, on my radio show, the African History Network show. I know that was Super Bowl Sunday, and at the very end of my show, I talked about the fact that I haven't watched the NFL game in 4 years, almost 4 years, basically, because Colin Kaepernick is being banned from the NFL. We all know about that. You see my previous broadcast. So I saw the story from TMZ, and I saw a number of different stories dealing with this topic. TMZ had a story from February 3rd, 2020, that dealt with Colin Kaepernick spent Super Bowl Sunday not watching the game, but serving the needy, serving up meals to the needy and helping homeless men try on clothes. And then also there was a story dealing with Jay-Z and Beyonce, who went to the Super Bowl, attended the Super Bowl. We know that Jay-Z's Rock Nation signed a deal in late 2019 with the NFL to produce the Super Bowl halftime show and to produce music. It's supposed to be uplifting music for the NFL to deal with criminal justice reform, things like this, right? You have heard me talk about that as well, because I talked about how Jay-Z really went behind the back of Colin Kaepernick to sign this deal with the NFL to bring in top artists, many of them who didn't want to perform for the Super Bowl, didn't want to perform at the Super Bowl because they were supporting Colin Kaepernick, okay? So Jay-Z and Beyonce were getting backlash from many right-wing conservatives like Tomi Lahren for sitting during the national anthem, okay? And it was, let's see, February 4th, I think it was February 4th or February 3rd, actually February 4th, the news came out that Jay-Z said that they were not making a statement by sitting for the national anthem, okay? So I know a lot of people wanted to say, oh, Jay-Z and Beyonce are supporting Colin Kaepernick's protests, et cetera, by sitting for the national anthem. And Jay-Z said, no, they weren't trying to make a protest. He said they were actually there working, okay? So we're gonna get into some of this. And then also we'll talk some about the history of the national anthem, the history of the Star-Spangled Banner. And when we talk about the national anthem, we have to talk about Francis Scott Key, who wrote, it was originally called The Defense of Fort McHenry, The Defense of Fort McHenry, okay? And he wrote it September 13th, 1814, during the War of 1812. And Francis Scott Key was a white supremacist slave owner who thought that African people were mentally inferior. And so a lot of people say, well, they talk about the third stanza of the national anthem and say, well, it's the third stanza that is racist or bigoted, okay? Which talks about no refuge for the hireling or the slave. No, it's really the entire song when you understand the history of it and you understand who Francis Scott Key was, okay? No, it's the entire song. That's why I refer to it as the white national anthem, okay? That's why I refer to it as the white national anthem, because it was written by white people, about white people, for white people, voted on by white people to become the national anthem. It's the white national anthem. And we understood it was the white national anthem. This is why we took the poem that became the national anthem, Black National Anthem, written by James Weldon Johnson in 1899. we took that poem and made it the Black national anthem, which we call Lift Every Voice and Sing, because we knew the white one was not for us. Okay, so let's jump into this, and everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page also. And let me pin this information here to the, there we go, let's pin it, okay? And also, if you want to support the African History Network, you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show, or through Cash App, $, the AHN show through Cash App. And African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, okay? Our current promotion is buy 1 month, get 2 months free. All right, so let's look at the first article that I saw dealing with this. This is from TMZ, and this is from February 3rd, 2020, entitled Colin Kaepernick Super Charity Sunday Serves Up Meals, Clothes for the Needy, okay, from February 3rd, 2020. And it says, Colin Kaepernick did not spend his Super Bowl Sunday watching his old team lose the big game. Instead, he gave back to the less fortunate. So we know he played for the San Francisco 49ers. They played the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 54, February 2nd, 2020. And they lost to the Chiefs, okay? And you see me wearing my Colin Kaepernick shirt as well. And it says, I'm not going to stand for a flag that oppresses Black people, but the full statement is, I'm not going to stand for a flag that oppresses Black people and people of color. So Colin Kaepernick went to the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem, the Schomburg Center, named after Arthur Schomburg, or Arturo Schomburg, who was Black and Puerto Rican. He did this on Super Bowl Sunday, spending over an hour with employees and touring the building. From there, he went over to the SCO family shelter in Jamaica, Queens, where he teamed up with Eric Reed, so his former teammate for the San Francisco 49ers, Eric Reed, who was the second player in the NFL to stand with Colin Kaepernick and to take a knee in opposition to the oppression of African Americans and people of color and racism and police brutality, okay, by protesting against the national anthem. The protest was not against the national anthem. The protest was against the mistreatment of African Americans and people of color because of systemic racism and police brutality. So they chose to take a knee at first to sit on the bench, then take a knee during the national anthem. Okay, just as Rosa Parks did not refuse to give up her seat December 1st, 1955 on the Cleveland Avenue bus in Montgomery, Alabama, because she was protesting the bus. She was protesting against a system of segregation and Jim Crow in Montgomery, Alabama, by refusing to give up her seat. She wasn't protesting the bus. So there's a video in here that you can check out. We'll post a link to this article from TMZ. There's a video in here, and in the video obtained by TMZ, you can see Colin Kaepernick personally helping some of the men try on suits. The group is a nonprofit dedicated to helping underprivileged men and women get business style clothing so they have a better shot at getting jobs. After that, Colin Kaepernick helped serve meals at the shelter with some help from the LES Girls Club and Know Your Rights volunteers. So the Know Your Rights camps are camps that Kaepernick has ran that teach youth, African-American youth, Hispanic youth, their legal rights, things like this, teach them to understand the law, etc. And they also teach them about career opportunities and direct them towards going to college. So now TMZ broke the story. Jay-Z, Beyonce, and Blue Ivy were sitting during Demi Lovato's national anthem performance at the Super Bowl. Of course, Colin Kaepernick believes he was blackballed from the NFL after starting his kneeling demonstration back in 2016, and he was blackballed, and that's why he won the settlement, as well as Eric Reed. They both sued the NFL And if the NFL is a multi-billion-dollar corporation, if the NFL didn't do anything wrong, if he wasn't blackballed, I doubt if they would agree to a settlement and pay out money. Because when you agree to a settlement and pay out money, that implies guilt. You wouldn't just pay out millions of dollars if you didn't do anything wrong. You want to take us to court? Go ahead and take us to court. Go ahead and sue us. And then when we prove that you sued us under false pretenses, when we prove that you did not have a legitimate lawsuit, then we're going to sue you for court costs. But they paid the settlement to an undisclosed settlement to Colin Kaepernick and Eric Reed. We know Eric Reed was let back into the league. He plays for the Carolina Panthers, but at least the first year he was with the Carolina Panthers, he was subjected to more random drug tests than basically any other player. Last count I heard, I think it was like 10 or 11 random drug tests. Okay. Not sure what that's about. I could take a wild guess, but hey. So, all right. So during a recent media event with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, Jay-Z said, quote, "We've moved past kneeling," a quote Colin Kaepernick clearly remembers and referenced in a post on his Instagram story. So the comment from Jay-Z, that was from, let's see here, I've got an article dealing with that. When was that? That was in 2019. And let me see, where did I put that? New York Times article. Hold on, I want to give you the link to it. Okay, NFL and Jay-Z team up on music and social justice campaign. The partnership brings together two of the country's biggest brands, as well as the league and a vocal critic. Okay, so this is from August 13th, 2019. So it was in August 2019 that they strike this deal. Contrary to popular belief, because I know people are circulating things on social media and talking about $100 million from the NFL being that's going to go to fight for criminal justice reform and things like this, right? That deal was negotiated by the NFL players and the Players Association in November of 2017. Jay-Z and the NFL didn't strike their deal till August of 2019. So if we look at, very quickly here, if we look at this article from the Washington Post, this is from November 30th, 2017, November 30th, 2017. NFL Players Coalition reach accord to provide nearly $90 million to aid activism, anthem protests unresolved. This article is from November 30th, 2017. Okay, I'll post a link here for you once you read the article. All right. It's $100 million. Is going to be $10 million per year for 10 years. That deal was negotiated long before Jay-Z struck this deal with the NFL. So I don't want people to be misconfused. I don't want people to be confused about this. All right. This was the NFL Players Coalition. Eric Reed backs away from the NFL Players Coalition and a few other players because they feel that the Players Coalition is compromising on what the movement was really about. Okay. But once again, this wasn't Jay-Z. All right. So let me give you the link to this article here. All right, how's everybody doing? Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page, because a lot of this information I'm sharing with you, you're not going to get a lot of other places. And you all know I've been following this protest since it started, basically August 26, 2016. Well, when the first article was written by Steve Weiss for NFL.com, I think it was. Okay, this is my Colin Kaepernick National Anthem file. These are articles dealing with the protests, all this stuff. So I've been studying this since August of 2016. All right, we'll post. I'll post that article here in a few minutes. Let's look at the. I want you to see this post here that Kaepernick did on, what was this, Instagram? Okay, he and Nisa Diab, DJ Nisa Diab, who's his fiance. They posted this on social media. So Kaepernick7, you can follow him on Facebook, or you follow him on Instagram, or follow him on Twitter. Kaepernick7 on Twitter also. They posted this TMZ Sports, Beyonce, Jay-Z, and Blue Ivy sit down during National Anthem at Super Bowl 54. You gotta know how to read Roman numerals. L means 50 in Roman numerals. And then it said, when you read the full, when you look at the full post, it says something to the effect of, I thought we were past kneeling. I thought we were past kneeling. Okay. Because that was a statement that Jay-Z made when they had the meeting, with Roger Goodell back in, I think it was August of 2019. During a recent media event with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell, Jay-Z said, quote, "We've moved past kneeling," end quote, a quote Kaepernick clearly remembers and referenced in a post on his Instagram story. But as we find out, at least according to Jay-Z, they weren't sitting down in protest. I'm gonna come to that in just a minute here. All right, so that's the first article. Then February 3rd, 2020, thehill.com had an article because Jay-Z and Beyonce were coming under, they were receiving backlash for appearing to protest the national anthem. If we look at this article from thehill.com entitled "Beyonce, Jay-Z Draw Attention for Sitting During Super Bowl National Anthem," February 3rd, 2020, it says, they're gaining widespread attention after footage emerged on Sunday night showing the couple sitting during the national anthem while attending the Super Bowl in Miami. In footage first posted by TMZ that has been picked up by a number of outlets, the couple could be seen sitting with their oldest daughter in the stands as Demi Lovato sang the Star Spangled Banner ahead of kickoff. The video garnered immediate reaction across social media, with some calling the move, quote unquote, despicable, while others defended the couple. Conservative Fox Nation host Tomi Lahren, who's one of the most ignorant Donald Trump supporters in the media. She's clearly an airhead. Okay, you can tell history wasn't her strong suit. It wasn't her strong subject in school. And neither was politics, neither was government or anything like that. But conservative Fox Nation host Tomi Lahren said the couple should, quote, try another country, and call the move despicable, while calling Jay-Z a former crack dealer. This is what she said. Now, she is a big Donald Trump supporter. Now, Jay-Z has admitted, selling drugs in the past. But you supporting the president who was selling out a country. You're supporting a president who is destroying the U.S. Constitution. You support a president who is a misogynist and who is selling out a country. At least Jay-Z can admit to what he did wrong in the past, because Trump can't. So she said, quote, "Beyonce and Jay-Z, former crack dealers, sit for the national anthem because apparently in the United States of America, sit for the national anthem because apparently the United States of America has oppressed them with million upon millions of dollars and fans," end quote. "Sounds rough. Maybe they should try another country that allows them a little more freedom and success," end quote. So one, this was put out before Jay-Z said they weren't protesting. But two, if they were, the First Amendment guarantees freedom of protest. There's no law saying that you have to stand for the national anthem. Okay. First Amendment guarantees freedom of protest, number one. Number two, the U.S. has a history of protest guaranteed by the First Amendment. The U.S. So what I'm saying is I find it interesting when you have conservatives who tell people, if you don't like the way the country is, you should leave. Because I'm sure there are Native Americans who would tell these white people the same thing. But when you understand the history of this country, the various movements come out of protests trying to correct conditions in this country, whether it's the labor movement, whether it's the labor strike, like whether it's the Pullman worker strikes, not the Pullman porter strikes, because the African-American Pullman porters were not allowed to strike around, it was like 1894, 1895, when the white workers who worked for George Pullman had a strike. When you look at the labor movement in this country, going back to the 1890s, you look at the labor movement, that was designed to correct conditions in this country that people felt were wrong. I find it interesting when you have conservatives who are supposed to be for the rule of law, supposed to be for family values, when they come across people who want to change conditions and make conditions better for people. For many of them, their argument is to leave the country. But the First Amendment gives the right to freedom of assembly. It gives the right to protest. So, I mean, there's a real contradiction there. And then when you have someone who says that, so hypothetically, well, let's go ahead and continue what she said. She said, quote, "You hate police, Donald Trump, and the spirit of this nation so much you can't pick your privileged asses off the chair for 2 minutes to pay some respect. Despicable," she continued. So because you want to hold police accountable does not mean you hate police. It means you want police officers to do their job. Because you want to hold police officers accountable and stop police brutality does not mean that you hate police. That means you want to hold police accountable. And if they hate Donald Trump, they probably have a good reason to. If they hate Donald Trump, I mean, if you just look at in the past couple of weeks, Donald Trump has added more nations to the immigration ban, including African nations, the largest African nation, Nigeria. He's included Eritrea to that ban. Donald Trump is a white supremacist. He just gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to another white supremacist named Rush Limbaugh. News1.com had an article that dealt with Rush Limbaugh's history and his history of bigotry and a lot of negative things Rush Limbaugh has said about African Americans in the past. Rush Limbaugh was one of the leading birthers in this country, leading the birther movement. Okay, Limbaugh has millions of listeners. One estimate I saw is 30 million listeners. I thought it was 20 million. Syndicated radio talk show host, and he just announced that he's been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Okay, so if we look at news1.com, I want you to read this article dealing with Rush Limbaugh's history of racism and history of bigotry, and him calling him being a leading birther. And we know Donald Trump was a birther for 5 years. He was a leader of the birther movement. And not only that, First Lady Melania Trump was a birther as well. Okay, so we see a pattern here. Let's pull up this article from news1.com. They have one about Rush Limbaugh getting the Presidential Medal of Freedom. Now, Sunday night on my show, I'm going to break down Trump's State of the Union address, and we'll fact check that because there's a whole lot of lies that he told in the State of the Union address. And you saw me post some articles dealing with the fact checking on that. Follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, and you see a lot of the fact checking. You know, in the last 3 years of the Obama administration, President Obama created more jobs in the last 3 years than Trump has in the first 3 years of his administration. But, you know, when you listen to Trump tell these lies, you wonder, what planet are you living on? Where is he getting this information from? This is stuff he's just making up. Rush Limbaugh's most racist quotes, a timeline of destructive commentary. Rush Limbaugh's most racist quotes, a timeline of destructive commentary. This was updated February 3rd, 2020. And some people are praying for Rush Limbaugh to recover from stage 4 cancer. Okay. So we'll post this link here. You can check this out. Some of this nonsense that he said in the past, calling Barack Obama Barack the Magic Negro, referring to Michelle Obama as a gorilla in heels. Let's see, referring to let's scroll back here. One African-American female caller called into his show. He told her, take that bone out of your nose and call me back. The NAACP should have riot rehearsal. They should get a liquor store and practice robberies. Look, let me put it to you this way. The NFL all too often looks like a game between the Bloods and the Crips without any weapons. There, I said it. He has a long history, okay? Have you ever noticed how all composite pictures of wanted criminals resemble Jesse Jackson? This is Rush Limbaugh. This is the guy that Donald Trump gave the Presidential Medal of Freedom to, the same medal that Rosa Parks received. And he did it on Rosa Parks' birthday. So February 4th was Rosa Parks' birthday. Mother Teresa has received the Presidential Medal of Freedom. All right. So this is who Tomi Lahren is defending. So we'll post the link to this article. I want you to read this, newsone.com, and they provide supporting documentation. Okay. Newsone.com. Rush Limbaugh's most racist quotes, a timeline of destructive commentary. A timeline of destructive commentary. Let's post this link right here. Okay, so let's go back to the article from thehill.com. How's everybody doing? All right. Everybody share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also. This is going to be real education here. Okay, we got Michelle, Robert, Charlie in Atlanta, Julia. Okay, how's everybody doing today? Okay, so she said that they hate police, Donald Trump, and the spirit of this nation, so much so you can't pick your behind up, your privilege behind, etc. Why do you think that people who have millions of dollars are not still oppressed? And even if individually they're not oppressed, why can't they still speak out for those who are oppressed? See, this is a tactic that many white conservatives use. It could be white people in general, but I especially see it from white conservatives who try to shut down African Americans who have achieved status and who have resources, okay, and who may want to speak out against injustices in various ways. They try to shut them down and say, oh, well, you're privileged, you're successful, so how are you oppressed? Why are you speaking out? You don't say that to Donald Trump. When Donald Trump talked about America was going to hell and all this stuff and talking about how bad America was under President Obama, that he runs for president, you don't tell Trump to shut up. He's privileged. You don't tell Trump to shut up. It's only African Americans who you tell to shut up, who will speak out in various ways against oppression, who have achieved some type of wealth, who have achieved some type of success. You don't tell white people to do that. Notice this. Just like Rush Limbaugh. They don't, Tomi Lahren wouldn't tell Rush Limbaugh, you're privileged, so why are you complaining about how bad America is? Notice the difference. All right, so the article from The Hill goes on to say a number of other conservatives made similar comments attacking Jay-Z and Beyonce on their platform. Now, Kyle Morris said, let's see, we got Charlie Kirk of Turning Point America, and we know that Candace Owens, little Candace Owens with the bad edges, with the bad hair, little Candace Owens, who's an African-American Donald Trump supporter and used to be communications director with Turning Point America. And she did the summit, the Revolt summit, the political summit with Killer Mike and T.I. Candace Owens, out of 9 or 10 statements, 8 are false. Okay. So Charlie Kirk said, anti-American spoiled brats, Jay-Z and Beyonce refuse to stand during our national anthem. This is why Black America is defecting from the Democrats. I'm not sure what evidence he's citing for that, but okay. I know you got her, and I know you have Candace Owens and what's his name? Kanye West, right? With their Blexit movement, okay? And then they got, and then someone who came out who said, wait a second, you stole that from us. I know they are trying to convince them, African Americans, to lead the Democratic Party. But just because somebody votes Democratic doesn't mean they're part of the Democratic Party either. But ruling class hacks deserve to be exposed. Ruling class hacks deserve to be exposed. Now, he's a Trump supporter. RT to show the world their hatred of our country. Okay, I'm not sure who he's referring to, RT. Maybe it's Russia Today. I'm not sure. So that's Charlie Kirk. And then, now some on social media defended the couple for making what appeared to be a political statement, but it wasn't. But some also took aim at the media, accusing outlets of singling out Jay-Z and Beyonce for sitting, while pointing out that other people in attendance appear to also be seated during the national anthem. So we know the national anthem has been a hot button issue at NFL games for nearly 5 years. Then they go on to talk about Colin Kaepernick, some in his protests. Okay, so you can, and then the last paragraph says Jay-Z has voiced support for Kaepernick in recent years and announced in 2019 that he would be partnering with the NFL on social justice efforts as it continues to face backlash from fans and celebrities upset with how the former quarterback was treated by the league following his on-field protests. Okay, so if you go back and watch I think it was August of 2019, I did either 1 or 2 extensive videos breaking this thing down. August, I did one, 2018, 2019. I did one in early 2019 because it was after Maroon 5 performed at the Super Bowl. In that Super Bowl, the 2019 Super Bowl had the lowest ratings in about 11 years, okay? So this was a move of the NFL to try to do a couple of things. One, so they can get A-list entertainers to perform at the Super Bowl who had said they were going to boycott. And Jay-Z was telling some of them, don't perform at the Super Bowl, like Rihanna. Also, we know Cardi B refused to perform at the Super Bowl, etc. 2, they want to try to bolster the ratings when it comes to the Super Bowl. 3, they knew that there were still fans that were still sore, that still held a grudge against the NFL for the mistreatment of Colin Kaepernick. All right. So they're trying to do a number of different things here. Okay, so read this article. This is from thehill.com. Beyonce, Jay-Z draw attention for sitting during Super Bowl national anthem. This is from February 3rd, 2020. All right, but as Jay-Z revealed on February 4th, 2020, he said they weren't protesting. So much for that. Okay, now let's go to the next article here because I have the articles here in order. Complex.com has an article from February 3rd, 2020. And let's go to that one here. Colin Kaepernick and Nisa Diab, who is his fiance, questioning why Jay-Z and Beyonce sat during National Anthem. All right. So to skip over all this, and they have some pictures of Colin Kaepernick working with the needy, things like that, which is great. Let's turn on the screen share here. And you can see it. I'm not sure if the one from TMZ had it. Okay, it was kind of small in the print. So you see it here. This is what Colin Kaepernick and Nisa Diab posted on their, this has to be Instagram. The caption in white letters above the head of the person with the locks says, "I thought we were past kneeling though. I thought we were past kneeling though." This is because that was what Jay-Z said when they had the press conference with Roger Goodell, okay, who heads up the NFL. Beyonce, Jay-Z, and Blue Ivy sit down during National Anthem at Super Bowl 54. "I thought we were past kneeling though." All right, so complex.com talked about that, and they quoted Jay-Z at the meeting with Roger Goodell, and it says, when Jay-Z and the NFL announced a partnership in 2019 that would see him consult on the Super Bowl halftime show, Jay-Z addressed Colin Kaepernick's national anthem protest. Quote, "We forget that Colin's whole thing was to bring attention to social justice. In that case, this is a success," end quote. Well, no, Colin Kaepernick's thing was not to bring attention to social justice. Colin Kaepernick's thing was to correct the mistreatment of African Americans and people of color and to end police brutality. His goal was not to bring attention to it. His goal was to create, what he was trying to do is draw more attention to it, but to correct the issue, not just draw attention to it. So Jay-Z said, quote, "This is the next phase. There are two parts of protesting. You go outside and you protest, and then the company or individual says, 'I hear you. What do we do next?'" TMZ reports that, so they talk about Kaepernick going to the Schomburg Research Center and volunteering, okay? All right, so that's from complex.com. Kaepernick and Nisa Diab share a message questioning why Jay-Z and Beyonce sat during National Anthem. Okay, let's go to the third article. I'm looking at these in order of the dates. The next one's from thegrill.com, February 3rd, 2020. Jay-Z and Colin Kaepernick, quote, "We disagree on the tactic, but are marching for the same cause," end quote. We disagree on the tactic, but are marching for the same cause, end quote. So it starts off by saying in 2019, Jay-Z experienced a tidal wave of backlash after Roc Nation announced its partnership with the NFL that would have the league committing at least 10 years and $100 million towards social reform. Now, that was negotiated by the players and their association before Jay-Z came on board. According to the official press release, though, his company, Roc Nation, Jay-Z will be co-producing the Super Bowl halftime show and also contribute to the Inspire Change, a foundation the NFL started in response to public outrage over their mishandling of Colin Kaepernick's peaceful #TakeAKnee protest. Inspire Change was part of the deal the players reached with the NFL back in November 2017, inspired change. I think what happened was it had a different name originally, and they changed the name. But that is part of what the NFL players negotiated with the NFL. Now the rapper and Roc Nation founder has finally addressed his critics in a recent interview with the New York Times, where he acknowledges the perceived deception of Colin Kaepernick. So February 1st, and then updated February 3rd, New York Times had a big article, and let's go to this here, because I printed it up. It's 10 pages. Jay-Z takes on the Super Bowl. Jay-Z takes on the Super Bowl. So I'll give you the link here for this one also. This is from the New York Times. Why are Roc Nation and the NFL doing business this Super Bowl weekend? Well, social justice is expensive, okay? And part of the article, they talk about the lawsuit he filed along with Yo Gotti, dealing with the deaths of prisoners in Mississippi and prisons in Mississippi, all right? And that's good. But in the article here, it says, let's go to here, quote, no one is saying, in reference to Colin Kaepernick, no one is saying he hasn't been done wrong. He was done wrong. And this is what he said in the New York Times interview. Quote, I would understand if it was 3 years ago. I'm sorry, I would understand if it was 3 months ago, but it was 3 years ago, and someone needs to say, what do we do now? Because people are still dying, end quote. So my question is, if this is a movement that Colin Kaepernick started, when did Jay-Z consult with Colin Kaepernick to find out what's the next move that we should make in this movement? So the article from thegrio.com goes on to say, so Jay-Z then outlined the company's deal with the league, Roc Nation's deal with the NFL, noting how the partnership in his mind works toward both he and Colin Kaepernick's goals. Quote, he said, we are two adult men who disagree on the tactic, but are marching for the same cause, end quote. Now, journalist Jemele Hill, who was on ESPN and now writes for, I think it's the Undefeated. I know she was writing for the Undefeated after she left ESPN. Journalist Jemele Hill has previously said that although she trusts that Roc Nation and Jay-Z are well-intentioned, she does not trust the NFL to address its own issues around diversity and systemic racism honestly. She said, quote, I feel like Jay-Z is giving them way too much of his cultural capital that they have not earned. There has always been this tension. There has always been this tension of, quote, will progress be made from working from the inside, end quote. The things that Jay-Z is trying to accomplish, he doesn't need the NFL to do. Now, in response to those concerns, Jay-Z explained, quote, as long as real people are being hurt and marginalized and losing family members, then yes, I can take a couple of rounds of negative press, end quote. Okay, I'm still not really seeing the connection here. I'm still not seeing the connection. Now that is from thegrio.com. I went and pulled out one of my articles from my archives because I've been following this since August of 2016. Where's that article? Let's see here. It was one I pulled out. I'm gonna give you the link to the one from the Grio. Yeah. This is from August 13, 2019. NFL and Jay-Z team up on music and social justice campaign. The partnership brings together two of the country's biggest brands, as well as the league and a vocal critic. Okay. The deal with Roc Nation, the rapper's entertainment and sports company, calls for the firm to be the NFL's, quote, live music entertainment strategist. Live music entertainment strategist. In that role, Roc Nation and Jay-Z will consult on entertainment, including the Super Bowl halftime show, and contribute to the league's activism campaign, Inspire Change. The NFL is keen to portray the deal as a way to bring more high-profile entertainers to its events. It also represents an effort to quiet the long-running controversy over its handling of players kneeling or sitting during the national anthem, and most notably involving Colin Kaepernick, and to form a bond with one of its most influential critics. Quote, the NFL has a great big platform and it has to be all inclusive, end quote, Jay-Z said in an interview at the time in August 2019 at Roc Nation's headquarters in Manhattan. Quote, they were willing to do some things to make sure changes that we can do some good. Read this full article. The issue has divided owners, league executives, and locker rooms across the NFL, where roughly 3/4 of players are African American. Some television executives blame the protests. For a drop in ratings in 2017. Near the end of that season, the league negotiated a deal with a coalition of players that included contributing as much as $89 million over 6 years to social justice causes of the players choosing. Okay, and then that was expanded to basically $100 million over 10 years, basically $10 million a year over 10 years. The effort, which was rebranded Inspire Change in January, donates money to groups fighting for criminal justice reform, employment, and educational opportunities in economically challenged areas, and better relations between the police and local communities. So they say the effort, which was rebranded as Inspire Change in January, that's January 2019, it was rebranded as Inspire Change. Jay-Z didn't enter this deal till August of 2019. Once again, this was stuff negotiated by the players, the players coalition with the NFL before Jay-Z signed this deal with the NFL. Okay, so I'm going to give you this link here. Read this full article, which really breaks this down so people can get a better understanding of what's taking place. That's from the New York Times. And then we have the one from February 3rd, 2020, Jay-Z on Colin Kaepernick, quote, we disagree on the tactic, but are marching for the same cause. Oh, okay. Then Black America, then February 4th, 2020. So the one from the Grill was February 3rd, 2020. One from Black America Web, February 4th, 2020. NBCnews.com is reporting on this, Black America Web, other outlets. Let's go to the one from NBC News also. But Black America Web, Jay-Z says he and Beyonce were working during Super Bowl, not protesting. Jay-Z says he and Beyonce were working during Super Bowl, not protesting. Okay, NBCnews.com has an article dealing with that same incident from February 5th, 2020. Jay-Z says family sitting during National Anthem at Super Bowl was not political statement. Quote, I didn't have to make a silent protest. The artists that we chose, Colombian Shakira, Puerto Rican J-Lo, we were making the biggest, loudest protest of all, end quote. Okay. So let's look at blackamericaweb.com first. There's been a lot of speculation as to why Jay-Z and Beyonce did not stand for the national anthem at Sunday's Super Bowl game in Miami. Some assume Jay-Z and Beyonce were making some kind of silent protest in accordance with Colin Kaepernick, in accordance with what Colin Kaepernick did with taking the knee. Well, would you believe it was simply a case of the Carters simply being at work? TMZ reported the story. Jay-Z says he and Beyonce sitting through the Star Spangled Banner at the Super Bowl was absolutely not a protest of any sort. It was simply two moguls hard at work. Jay-Z was at Columbia University this past Tuesday, so that would have been February 4th, and addressed the video TMZ Sports first posted Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, showing Jay-Z and Beyonce and their daughter Blue Ivy seated as Demi Lovato sung the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem. A Columbia professor asked Jay-Z if he remained seated to, quote, convey a signal, end quote. And Jay-Z quickly replied, quote, it actually wasn't, sorry, end quote. It actually wasn't, sorry, end quote. He said Beyonce told him she was thinking about Demi Lovato must have been going through, was thinking what Demi Lovato must have been going through in the seconds before starting the national anthem. As Jay-Z put it, Beyonce's, quote, performed at the Super Bowl before, and I have it, end quote. He said they were both laser focused on Demi Lovato's performance, but from a business standpoint, quote, we immediately jumped into artist mode, end quote. He went on to say, quote, I'm really just looking at the show. The mics start, the microphones, the mics start. Was it too low to start? He went on to make the point he was concerned about the audio and every aspect, really, of the show, and for very good reason. Remember, Jay-Z's Rock Nation is now producing all of the entertainment at the Super Bowl as part of the deal Jay-Z struck with the NFL last year, August of 2019. That included Demi Lovato's national anthem, Yolanda Adams singing America the Beautiful, and the halftime show with Shakira and J-Lo. That was all produced by Jay-Z. Jay-Z said there was no need for a quote unquote silent protest, which some thought they were doing, because we were, quote, making the biggest, loudest protest of all by selecting such a diverse group of artists to perform at the game. Okay. This, trying to tell y'all, he said we were making the biggest, loudest protest of all by selecting such a diverse group of artists to perform at the game. I don't remember Colin Kaepernick protesting a lack of diversity at the Super Bowl halftime show and singing the national anthem. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't remember that being part of his protest. Yeah. Also worth noting, the Carters attend sporting events regularly. Jay-Z was a minority owner of the Brooklyn Nets, and the Brooklyn Nets try to promote it like he owned more than, he owned like a fraction of 1%. Now, this is not an attack on Jay-Z. I'm just putting forth the information. This ain't that I don't dislike Jay-Z, it's an attack on Jay-Z. Now, Damon Dash, when this deal happened with the NFL, Damon Dash was in an interview. You know Damon Dash, who co-founded Rockefeller Records with Jay-Z? Now, Damon Dash said Jay-Z ain't sugar honey iced tea, and he said Jay-Z's out for himself. I don't know Damon Dash, but he knows Jay-Z, and he said this in an interview. So, but I just find all this interesting because if you go back and watch, when this deal was announced with Rock Nation and the NFL, I did a video and I talked about this. And I'm like, no, this don't look like a continuation of Colin Kaepernick's protest. All right, so some people wanted to make it that. So Jay-Z was a minority owner of the Brooklyn Nets, and we're told they always stand for the national anthem. We found photos and videos to back that up, including the 2017 NBA All-Star game. So I'm not sure, but okay. I'm not sure how J-Lo and Shakira performing at the NFL, performing at the Super Bowl halftime show, and then Yolanda Adams singing America the Beautiful, and Demi Lovato singing the white national anthem. I'm not sure how that's continuing Colin Kaepernick's protest, but okay. All right. So let me give you this article. Let me give you the link to this article here from NBCnews.com as well. And we'll go to some of your comments here in just a minute. And then we're going to get into some of the history of the Star Spangled Banner and Francis Scott Key. So just bear with me because I'm dealing with a bunch of articles here and 2 laptops, all right? African-American business owners supposed to name your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with the African History Network. We'll get you up and running today. Our current promotion is we have it going for a few more days. Buy 1 month, get 2 months free. Buy 1 month, get 2 months free. All right. So we have a new advertiser here. It's 2020 and people want to get into shape. And SheRanHerselfFit.com. SheRanHerselfFit.com can definitely help you with this. Now, She Ran Herself Fit's mission is to inspire and motivate women to make healthy lifestyle changes. She Ran Herself Fit is a brand that promotes women living a healthy lifestyle. By making small sacrifices in our daily routine and changing our diet, we can combat many of the different diseases that are prevalent in the African American community. The owner of She Ran Herself Fit lost over 200 pounds by changing her diet and running. And when you go to that website, SheRanHerselfFit.com, you can see before and after pictures. Running may not be your motivation, but find what drives you to be fit. She Ran Herself Fit apparel can be purchased at SheRanHerselfFit.com, SheRanHerselfFit.com. So visit their website. You can order from them also. Let them know you found out about this from the African History Network. All right. So let me give you the article. Let me give you the link to the article from the Griot. As well. All right. So let's see who we have here. Okay, so we got Alvin. What else we have? Okay, Michelle. The whole thing is political and all about money. Jay-Z sees an opportunity to make millions. So his thoughts are forget the rest. I'm about the money. Yeah, that's what I think also. We got Sean. The NFL is a parasitic institution, an entity of the soul. Let's see who else we have. Anita, how you doing, Anita? In Detroit. Okay, let's refresh this screen. All right, so when we look at the national anthem, what's known as the Star Spangled Banner, I've done a couple lectures dealing with this in the past, but we have to look at Francis Scott Key. So Francis Scott Key on September 13th, 1814, pens a poem which is which will later be set to music, or he pens lyrics which will later be set to music. And in 1931, what was originally called the Defense of Fort McHenry, the Defense of Fort McHenry, is going to become America's national anthem in 1931. The Star Spangled Banner, originally titled the Defense of Fort McHenry, was written after Francis Scott Key witnessed the Maryland fort being bombarded by the British during the War of 1812. So the War of 1812 is 1812 to 1814, fought between the U.S. and Great Britain, once again, like the American Revolutionary War. Francis Scott Key was inspired by the sight of a lone U.S. flag still flying over Fort McHenry at daybreak, as reflected in the now famous words of the Star Spangled Banner, quote, "And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there," end quote. Now, History.com, which is the official website of the History Channel, has a good article, and I have a number of articles on this because I've done a lot of research on this. They have an article, 9 Things You May Not Know About the Star Spangled Banner. 9 things you may not know about the Star Spangled Banner. And number 1 is Francis Scott Key intended his verses to be song lyrics, not poetry. Francis Scott Key intended his verses to be song lyrics, not poetry. The Star Spangled Banner was not a poem set to a melody years later, although Francis Scott Key was an amateur poet and not a songwriter. When he composed his verses, he intended them to accompany a popular song of the day. Quote, "We know he had the tune in mind because the rhyme and meter exactly fitted," says Mark Leepson, Leepson, author of the new Francis Scott Key biography entitled "What So Proudly We Hailed." The first broadside of the verses, printed just days after the battle of Fort McHenry, noted that the words should be sung to the melody of "To Anacreon in Heaven," Anacreon, Anacreon, I think it's pronounced, "To Anacreon in Heaven." Francis Scott Key was quite familiar with the tune, having used it to accompany an 1805 poem, which included a reference to a star-spangled flag he had written to honor Barbary War naval heroes Stephen Decatur and Charles Stewart. Although Francis Scott Key composed the patriotic lyrics amid a burst of anti-British euphoria, the tune "To Anacreon in Heaven" was ironically an English song composed in 1775 that served as the theme song of the upper crust Anacreontic Society of London and a popular pub staple, okay? Because in one source it said it was an old English drinking song, okay? Anacreontic Society of London. So this article gives some good background information on Francis Scott Key. Talks about the War of 1812 as well. 9 things you may not know about the Star Spangled Banner. All right. So if we look at Francis Scott Key history, he was born on August 1st, 1779 at Terra Rubra, Terrarubra. This was his family's estate in Frederick County, now Carroll County in Maryland. He became a successful lawyer in Maryland and Washington, D.C., and was later appointed U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia. On June 18th, 1812, America declared war on Great Britain after a series of trade disagreements. So this was the War of 1812. In August 1814, British troops invaded Washington, D.C. and burned the White House Capitol building and a Library of Congress. The next target was Baltimore, okay? So this is when the British burned the White House. They burned the White House, the Capitol building, and the Library of Congress. This was during the War of 1812. After one of Francis Scott Key's friends, Dr. William Beanes, B-E-A-N-E-S, or maybe pronounced Benes, was taken prisoner by the British, Francis Scott Key went to Baltimore, located the ship where Beanes or Benes was being held, and negotiated his release. However, Francis Scott Key and his friend were not allowed to leave until after the British bombardment of Fort McHenry. So Fort McHenry was there in Baltimore. So Francis Scott Key watched the bombing campaign unfold from aboard a ship located about 8 miles away. After a day, the British were unable to destroy the fort and gave up. So Key was relieved to see the American flag still flying over Fort McHenry and quickly penned a few lines in tribute to what he had witnessed. Francis Scott Key stuck aboard a British ship where he had been negotiating a prisoner release and barred by the officers of the HMS Tonnant from leaving because he knew too much about their position, could only watch the battle and hope for the best. So the poem was printed in newspapers and eventually set to music of a popular English drinking tune called To Anacreon in Heaven by composer John Stafford Smith. People began referring to the song as the Star-Spangled Banner. And in 1916, President Woodrow Wilson announced that the song should be played at all official events. The song is going to be adopted as the national anthem on March 3rd, 1931. This was after 40 previous failed attempts by Congress to get the bill passed to make the song the national anthem, okay? Now, if we look at if we look back at the article, 9 things you may not know about the Star-Spangled Banner. Number 2 is Francis Scott Key was not imprisoned on a British warship when he penned his verses. In his capacity as a Washington, D.C. lawyer, Francis Scott Key had been dispatched by President James Madison on a mission to Baltimore to negotiate for the release of Dr. William Benes, a prominent surgeon captured at the Battle of Bladensburg. The Battle of Bladensburg, accompanied by John Stuart Skinner, a fellow lawyer working for the State Department. Francis Scott Key set sail on an American sloop in Baltimore Harbor, and on September 7th, the pair boarded the British ship Tonnant, T-O-N-N-A-N-T, where they dined and secured the prisoners' release under one condition. They could not go ashore until after the British attacked Baltimore. Accompanied by British guards on September 10th, Francis Key returned to the American sloop from which he witnessed the bombardment behind the 50-ship British fleet. Okay, so they go on and they have some other facts as well you can check out. Number 5 is it did not become the national anthem until more than a century after it was written. Along with Hail Columbia, H-A-I-L, Hail Columbia and Yankee Doodle, the Star-Spangled Banner was among the prevalent patriotic airs or songs in the aftermath of the War of 1812. During the U.S. Civil War, which is 1861 to 1865, the Star-Spangled Banner was an anthem for Union troops, and the song increased in popularity in the ensuing decades, which led to President Woodrow Wilson signing an executive order in 1916 designating it as, quote, the national anthem of the United States, end quote, for all military services. On March 3rd, 1931, after 40 previous attempts failed, a measure passed Congress and was signed into law that formally designated the Star Spangled Banner as the national anthem of the United States. Okay, so if we go back and look at some of the history of Francis Scott Key, he was a slaveholding lawyer from an old Maryland plantation family. And thanks to a system of human bondage, he had grown rich and powerful from owning slaves, okay, and this system of slavery. Now, when he wrote the poem that when he wrote the lyrics that would become the national anthem, like Thomas Jefferson, who, and Jefferson writes the majority of the Declaration of Independence. Like Thomas Jefferson, Francis Scott Key not only profited from slaves, he also harbored racist or bigoted conceptions of American citizenship and human potential. Africans in America, he said, were, quote, a distinct and inferior race of people, which all experience proves to be the greatest evil that afflicts a community, end quote. All right, I'm skipping over some of this that's redundant. So SmithsonianMag.com has a good article on Francis Scott Key. Where's the debate on Francis Scott Key's slaveholding legacy? Where's the debate on Francis Scott Key's slaveholding legacy? During his lifetime, abolitionists ridiculed Key's words, sneering that America was more like the land of the free and home of the oppressed. SmithsonianMag.com is the official website of the Smithsonian Institute. And I think I got all of that in my notes here. So in this article on page 4 of it, it says the poem he wrote, or the lyrics he wrote, celebrated that Star Spangled Banner as a symbol of the resilience and triumph of the United States. Ironically, while Key was composing the land or the land of the free, it's really over the land of the free, but the V is spelled O''ER. So it's really over the land of the free. It is likely that Black slaves were trying to reach British ships in Baltimore Harbor. They knew that they were far more likely to find freedom and liberty under the Union Jack, the British flag, than under the Star Spangled Banner, the US flag. Additionally, Francis Scott Key used his office as the district attorney for the city of Washington from 1833 to 1840 to defend slavery, attacking the abolitionist movement in several high-profile cases. In the mid-1830s, the abolitionist movement was gaining momentum, and with it came increased violence, particularly from pro-slavery mobs attacking free African Americans and white abolitionists, and other methods to silence the growing cries for abolition. In a House of Representatives and United States Senate, the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate were inundated with petitions from abolitionists calling for the ending or restriction of slavery. Pro-slavery congressmen looked for a way to suppress the voices of abolitionists. In 1836, the House of Representatives passed a series of what were called gag rules, G-A-G, gag rules, to table all anti-slavery petitions and prevent them from being read or discussed, raising the ire of people like John Quincy Adams, okay, who was the sixth president, John Quincy Adams, who saw restricting debate and assault on a basic First Amendment right of citizens to protest the petition. Now, what's going to happen is that Francis Scott Key is going to use his position to attack abolitionists. So in this same year, shortly after a race riot in Washington, D.C., in 1836, shortly after a race riot in Washington, D.C., when an angry white mob set upon a well-known free African-American restaurant owner, Francis Scott Key likewise sought to crack down on the free speech of abolitionists he believed were riling things up in the city. So he prosecuted a New York doctor living in Georgetown for possessing abolitionist pamphlets. The doctor's name was Reuben Crandall. In the resulting case, U.S. versus Reuben Crandall, Crandall, Francis Scott Key made national headlines by asking whether the property rights of slaveholders outweighed the free speech rights of those arguing for Francis Scott Key's outweighed the free speech rights of those arguing for slavery's abolishment. Okay. In the resulting case, U.S. versus Reuben Crandall, Francis Scott Key made national headlines by asking whether the property rights of slaveholders outweighed the free speech rights of those arguing for slavery's abolishment. Key hoped to silence abolitionists who he charged wished to, quote, associate and amalgamate with the Negro, end quote. He hoped to silence abolitionists who he charged wished to, quote, associate and amalgamate with the Negro, end quote. Though Reuben Crandall's offense was nothing more than possessing abolitionist literature, Francis Scott Key felt that abolitionists' free speech rights were so dangerous that he sought unsuccessfully to have Reuben Crandall hanged. So he wanted to have Reuben Crandall executed because Reuben Crandall was an abolitionist and he was caught with abolitionist pamphlets. Francis Scott Key, the man who wrote the Star-Spangled Banner, felt that Reuben Crandall was a danger. And he felt that abolitionist free speech rights were so dangerous that he sought unsuccessfully to have Reuben Crandall executed. So read this article, Where's the Debate on Francis Scott Key's Slave-Holding Legacy? This is from SmithsonianMag.com, written by Christopher Wilson, July 1st, 2016, written by Christopher Wilson. Another good article is from Dr. Jason Johnson for TheRoot.com. Now, this article went viral. It was written July 4th, 2016. And what happened was about a month after it, or in September 2016, when people really started paying attention to Colin Kaepernick's protests, this article went viral. The name of the article is Star-Spangled Bigotry, the Hidden Racist History of the National Anthem. Star-Spangled Bigotry, the Hidden Racist History of the National Anthem. And one of the things he talks about in this article is the colonial Marines. The colonial Marines. And the colonial Marines was a Marine battalion of runaway slaves who joined the British Royal Army in exchange for their freedom. This is during the War of 1812. The Marines were not only a terrifying example of what slaves would do if given the chance, but also a repudiation of the white superiority that men like Francis Scott Key were so invested in. 3 weeks before the defense of Fort McHenry, or the battle at Fort McHenry, you had the Battle of Bladensburg, which took place August 24th, 1815, during the War of 18, was August 24th, 1814, during the War of 1812. And during that battle, Francis Scott Key was serving as a lieutenant at the time. He ran into a battalion of colonial Marines. His troops were taken to the woodshed by the very black folks he disdained. And he fled back to his home in Georgetown, okay? The British troops, emboldened by their victory in Bladensburg, then marched into Washington, D.C., burning the Library of Congress, burning the U.S. Capitol building, and burning the White House. You can imagine that Francis Scott Key was very much in his feelings, seeing African-American soldiers trampling on the city he so desperately loved, all right? So it is when in the third stanza where Francis Scott Key said, and where is that band who so vauntingly swore that the havoc of the war and the battle's confusion, a home and a country, should leave us no more. Their blood has washed out their foul footsteps' pollution. No refuge could save the hireling and slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. And the star-spangled banner in triumph doth wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. So some people believe that he is talking about the colonial Marines, because he writes the lyrics that become the Star-Spangled Banner about 3 weeks about 3 weeks after he's defeated by these former slaves, the colonial Marines, at the Battle of Bladensburg. All right, so you can check out these articles, get more understanding of this. This is one of the reasons why I call it the white national anthem, because you have to understand who wrote it, okay, and understand his history, Francis Scott Key. Let's look at some more of your comments here. How's everybody doing? So if you like this type of information, also you can donate to the African History Network, paypal.me/the AHN show, paypal.me/the AHN show. Then also through Cash App, $ the AHN show, through Cash App, $ the AHN show, through Cash App. My 15 DVD bundle pack, the Black History Month bundle pack, is on sale right now at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It includes 15 of my lectures plus an additional one dealing with the history of African American History Month. It's on sale $100. It's like a $250 value. Let's continue. Let's look at some of your comments here. And then also, if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me at customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customer service at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. If you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, I'll be speaking at Nandy's Knowledge Cafe in Highland Park, Michigan, Saturday, February 8th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is my African American History Month presentation. We'll deal with Black Migration 1619 to 2019. We'll also deal with this year's theme for African American History Month. The national theme is African Americans and the Vote. We know that February 3rd, 2020 was the 150th anniversary of the ratification of the 15th Amendment of 1870, which gave African American men the right to vote. So we'll discuss that and a lot more. It's a free event, donations accepted. We have the information at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and also I have a video talking about it at our YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep. We'll get that on our website also. But Nandy's Knowledge Cafe is located at 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan. 71 Oakman Avenue in Highland Park, Michigan, okay? And that is Saturday, February 8th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So African American business owners, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast and email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. We'll let you know how you can advertise with us. A lot of people want to get their credit corrected and get their credit repaired in 2020. And RRR Credit Services and Chandronette Middleton can help you with this. Are you tired of having poor credit? Are you tired of paying those high double-digit interest rates? Would you like to purchase your dream home one day? If the answer is yes to any of these questions, RRRCreditServices.com is your answer. They are your one-stop when it comes to credit education and repair. They equip you by providing solutions which will enable you to rebuild your financial future. The affordable cost to become a new client is just $30 for the first month. Take the first step by giving them a call at 1-800-607-1989, 1-800-607-1989 for a free credit consultation. And also visit our website, rrrcreditservices.com, rrrcreditservices.com. Okay, Ruth is in Atlanta listening. And I'll be in Atlanta, let's see, for the 3-day Juneteenth festival that Bob Johnson does in Atlanta. I'm there for that. I should be speaking there this year. That's right around June 19th. And then I'll be in Atlanta the third weekend in July for the Black Homeschooling Conference also, the Liberated Minds Black Homeschooling Education Expo. Okay, we got Rosemary. Let's see, who else do we have here? Okay, Ruth, Anita. All right, just a few of the people watching. Be sure to listen to the African History Network show Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation WFDF, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. We broadcast on our Facebook fan page, the African History Network. Our Sunday, February 2nd show is on our YouTube channel also now, Michael Imhotep on YouTube, so you can watch the whole show, and then we have some segments up as well. I'm adding more segments as smaller video clips, but we have the full show up. Posted that yesterday, I think it was. All right, so look, we're going to get out of here. Thanks for tuning in. You can go back and watch this from the beginning. Check out these articles that I gave you also. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All of my DVD lectures are there. You can order those, and we have some of them on digital download. That helps us to support the African History Network. You can also donate. And if you want me to do a presentation for your group or organization, email me customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, customerservice@AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I spoke at Detroit Unity Temple Sunday, February 2nd, Super Bowl Sunday. They had me speak there, and I did a workshop. And they have me doing a recurring class the first and third Friday, it looks like, of each month, teaching history, things like that. So we'll give you more information about that as well. I should be in Saturday, February 15th. I'll be at Chicago State University for the Black Mall, for the Ujamaa, the Black Mall Ujamaa African Marketplace. I'll be there for that. And then, let's see, Sunday, February 16th, we'll be broadcasting the African History Network show. And I think I'll be back at Detroit Unity Temple because they're going to have Dr. Molefi Kete Asante as a speaker, who's the chair of the Afro-American Studies Department at Temple University. Okay, and Dr. Molefi Kete Asante will also be speaking at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History Sunday, February 16th, 2020. So that, I think it's probably like 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. So I should be there for that as well. He should be my guest Sunday night, February 9th on the African History Network show also. Let me try to find this flyer here. I'm speaking, let's see, February 16th, I'm speaking at St. Francis Missionary Baptist Church. Deacon McConicle and the pastor set this up for me. So let me see, what time am I speaking there? Because I don't remember all these dates are coming together. Let me give you this information. Let me find the tweet here just a second, because he sent me the flyer. All right. So this is Sunday, February 16th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. Okay, that's where I'll be. So I guess I won't be at the Charles Wright Museum then. Okay, I'll be at Sunday, February 16th. I'll be at St. Francis Missionary Baptist Church, 7021 West Warren Avenue, Detroit, Michigan. February 16th, 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. This is celebrating African American History Month. This is their African American History Month program. I'll be speaking on Black Migration 1619 to 2019 and African Americans and the vote. So that's where I'll be. Now I should be at Detroit Unity Temple Church that morning, I guess, because Malefe will be speaking there, and he's at the 10 a.m. service. The service is like 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. But I'll be at St. Francis Missionary Baptist Church. Okay, that's where I will be. So we'll get this all up at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com as well, okay? Yeah, well, we knew the Senate, we knew the cowards in the Senate, the Republican cowards in the Senate were going to acquit Donald Trump. Now, I'll deal with that on my Sunday night show. We're going to break that down. I may do a separate broadcast. I don't know. I have a lot of work to do. But I'm going to tear them up Sunday night. And I may do it sooner if I can't wait. But so Senator Susan Collins of Maine. See, these are some cowardly senators because they know what Trump did was wrong. They know if this was any other president, especially President Barack Obama, they would vote to remove him from office. Senator Susan Collins in the interview said she thinks Trump learned his lesson. Trump maintains he didn't do anything wrong. So what lesson did he learn? The only lesson he learned is that these Republicans are cowards and that he can get away with anything as far as they're concerned. That's the only thing that he learned, okay? That Republicans are cowards and he could get away with anything. So Democrats did the right thing to charge him. Now, I thought they were going to also include obstruction of justice. Okay, it may have been some other reasons why they didn't include instructions. I thought they were going to include obstruction of justice. But watch the February 2nd, 2020 show that I did, where I dealt with this, because I've been covering, on my Sunday night show, I've been covering this every week, what happened the previous week in the impeachment trial. And then, but we knew now, Senator Mitt Romney was the only Republican senator who, as far as I know, Senator Mitt Romney was the only Republican senator who voted to remove Trump. Okay, it doesn't count because you need 67. So this is the first time in impeachment history where a senator of the party of the president that's being impeached voted to impeach the president. And he said that he took an oath before God to defend the Constitution and do the right thing. And he said Senator Mitt Romney, he said, even though he votes along with Trump about 80% of the time, that his conscience would not allow him to do that. And he talked about how history would judge him. and how his grandchildren, et cetera, when they learn about what happens, how they would judge him. Let me pull up one of the articles that I posted. So Washington Post has one, the president is guilty, Mitt Romney's speech on his vote to convict, annotated. ABCnews.com, invoking his faith and emotional, Mitt Romney announces he'll vote to convict Trump. Because every U.S. senator knows, even Senator Lamar Alexander, who should have voted to do the right thing and vote to remove Trump, because Lamar Alexander, Republican from Tennessee, is resigning at the end of this year. He's retiring. He's retiring at the end of this year, at the end of 2020. He should retire today. Okay, he admitted what Trump did was wrong, but did not rise to the level of removal from office. And many people are asking, well, if pressuring a foreign country by withholding aid that was approved by Congress to get them to launch an investigation into your political rival who's running for president in the same presidential campaign that you're running against. If you want them to publicly announce they're launching an investigation because you're trying to hurt your political rival, and you're using the power of the presidency and you're using taxpayer dollars to do this, if that doesn't rise to the level of impeachment and being worthy of being removed from office, then what does? So Mitt Romney said corrupting an election to keep oneself in office is perhaps the most abusive and destructive violation of one's oath of office that I can imagine, end quote. I told people in 2014, I told people in 2016, elections have consequences. People don't understand how important the U.S. Senate is. Go back and watch the show I did Sunday night, because I talked about the history of the U.S. Senate. And for like the first 125 years of the U.S. Senate, the senators were not elected by the people. They were appointed by members of the state legislature, because the position of the U.S. Senate was so important, because they are the ones who would actually vote to remove a president from office. So the founding fathers who framed the Constitution did not want the U.S. senators to feel pressure from constituents to vote one way or another to remove a president from office. Okay, they wanted them to be largely removed from the political pressure. And it changed in 1914. 1914 was the first year that citizens voted for the U.S. Senate, because going back to the 1850s, there was corruption, and the system was breaking down. So they changed it. So in 1914, that was the first year that people voted for a U.S. senator, but they may have to change it back and put some safeguards in there, because this is ridiculous. But I said before, elections have consequences. People don't understand how important the U.S. Senate is. And when Democrats lost control of the U.S. Senate in 2014, okay, because people don't understand how important the midterm elections are. They lost control of the U.S. Senate in 2014. Mitch McConnell became Senate Majority Leader. All right. And then Mitch McConnell's up for re-election in 2020, November 3rd, 2020. He has to be voted out of office. People in Kentucky, African Americans in Kentucky, white people in Kentucky, they have to, and Hispanics, whoever else, they got to vote him. But Moscow Mitch has to be voted out of office. And also Democrats have to take back control of the U.S. Senate. The reason why is because you can't get the bills that are being passed in the House of Representatives. You can't get them passed in the Senate because Mitch McConnell Republicans are blocking them in the Senate. It was about 433 bills that Democrats passed in the House of Representatives in 2019. 80% are being blocked in the Senate. So people don't understand how important the Senate is. They don't understand like how this works. They focus on the president. President is important, but the three branches of government. Even though Trump wants to act like he's a monarch, you still have to get bills passed in the House of Representatives and the Senate and get them signed into law by a president. Unless you have a supermajority, a 2/3 supermajority in the House and the Senate that can override a presidential veto. But that really, for the overwhelming majority of bills, that doesn't exist. So this is, I try to tell people, don't listen. I told you elections have consequences. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering those of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Remember, right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace. All right, guys, be sure to also follow us on our Facebook fan page, The African History Network, to Michael Imhotep, and on Twitter, The AHN Show on Twitter, The AHN Show on Twitter.